Today, we're talking about 6 of the best RAM for Ryzen 5000 series CPUs. Let's get into it. Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Adrian Reddix, and today we're talking about what is the best RAM for Ryzen 5000 series chips. But before we do that, in my experience, after teaching and having interns under me and a lot of different things in my career, I think the most confusing part of a PC build is going to be the RAM. People understand storage. People understand what a motherboard does on a high level at least. And then people understand graphics cards. You know, you put it in there, you get better graphics. But RAM is one of those things that confuses people. Like people are like, it gives you speed. What does that mean? So before we get to our recommendations, I want to answer a couple questions to clear up RAM. So what is RAM? What does it do? What does the numbers in the RAM title mean? Like CL, what does that mean? The speed in megahertz, what does that mean? The gigabytes, what does that represent? And also the big hotly debated thing, dual channel versus single channel. If you don't want to hear this and you kind of understand what RAM is, skip to this part of the video and you can get the recommendations. First thing, what is RAM? Think of RAM like the workbench. Think of the whole thing as a workbench. So let's give the example of the carpenter. So your storage is going to be your pegboard where you have all your materials and your tools, right? That's an oversimplification of the process, but stay with me. Your RAM is your workbench, right? And your carpenter is your CPU. So your CPU has to get things from storage to do work, but you can't do work in your hands. You know, that's a very difficult thing to do. So you use your workbench to do your work. So you get it from the CPU, gets it from storage, brings it down, goes to the workbench, does the work, and then can distribute it out or do whatever it needs to do. Same thing with RAM. So RAM is your workbench. That's where all your work is done. That's why it's called random access memory, because the CPU can just access it and do what it wants to do. That's why it's short-term memory. It's not long-term memory, right? But if you didn't have autosave and you were working on like a Word document and you shut your computer down, it's gone because it hadn't been saved to the long-term storage. Let's talk about CL. What does that mean? What does CL mean in that whole bunch of numbers that they just throw at you? So the less abbreviated is the CAS latency, which stands for column address strobe latency. What does that mean? I'll break it down to you. It's very simple on a high level. Basically, what CL means is how many clock cycles it takes from when the CPU asks for something to when the RAM delivers. That's it. The lower the number, the better, right? So if I have a very low number, that's really good. Kind of, but that's not the whole story. We'll go into our next section, which is RAM speed. RAM speed can affect your CL rating. So RAM speed is measured in megahertz. So the higher your RAM speed, the faster your RAM. So you have something like 2666 RAM and 3000. Of course, 3000 is going to be faster than 2666, right? But it's a combination of CL and RAM speed that gives us our performance, because they work hand in hand together. Let's give you an example. Let's say you have one RAM that's DDR4 2100 with a clock cycle, a CL of 17. Then you have another one that's 2666 with a clock cycle of CL 19. Which one's faster? It's going to be the one with the longer clock cycle because it has a faster speed. Even though you can get it done in less clock cycles, if I can do my clock cycles faster than you can, then my speed is going to be greater. So theoretically, you want to have a very high speed with a very low latency. And that's what gives you your best performance. Let's talk about RAM gigabytes. So basically what it is, let's go back to the workbench analogy. So if you only have, say if you're a carpenter and you're trying to make tables, and you only have a 2-foot workbench, well, you can't make that long of a table. And if you do make a long of a table, it's going to be a very hard, longer process because it isn't enough room. Think of gigabytes as bench space. So how much room you have to work. So the larger gigabytes you have, the larger bench you have, the more projects, the more different things you can do on that workbench at the same time. So basically, it's just where the computer can come in and have a large enough workspace to do things. So the larger the space, the better. So that's why 128 gigabytes is going to be better than 4. The big one's going to be dual channel versus single channel. Like, which one is better? You'll always hear people say dual channel over single channel. And yeah, in most cases, because it's cheaper for RAM to come in pairs, dual channel is better. But if you're a gamer and that's all you're doing is gaming and you're on a budget build, single channel works fine. There's really no difference when you're talking about gaming between single and dual channel. Where it really shines is going to be people who use their computers for like rendering as far as videos and animations like Blender or some high level math applications or different scientific applications. And also on the server side, when we're talking about like storage and server function, then dual channel makes a heck of a lot more sense than it does single channel. I wouldn't even dare to try to put a single channel in one of those applications. But as far as if you're gaming and you're trying to do a budget build, or if you just have enough money just for one stick, just do that. But if you're gonna do things like editing and CAD and things like that. So on my channel, I have a video about the top 5 PC mistakes you should avoid, where I go deeper into single versus dual channel. Also, I'll link the Gamers Nexus article and video. It is a little older, but it still has some relevant information on it in the description below. So let's get into the recommendations. We're going to group these into 3 groups. So we're going to have 2 8 gig sticks. We're going to have a 16 double pair, and then we're going to have a 32 double pair. So let's get into the recommendations. The first one is, I don't know how to say this, please correct me in the comment section. It's the Oloyo or Ololo or Oloyo, whatever. The 8 gig, this model right here. It's going to be 32 megahertz with the CL of 16. This is a great for a budget build. If you only have the money and you can't spend more than, it's usually around $50-ish, then this is a really good one to have. It's no frills. It's not, doesn't have RGB. It doesn't have like a fancy heat spreader or anything like that. It's just what it is. It comes in the different colors, and it's just, it does what it does. You know, it's a very good budget friendly choice. No frills, does its job, comes in, does what it needs to do, and then leaves. The next one is a darling of the budget PC world, and that's Team T-Force Vulcan Z 3200 8 gig RAM. It's another one of those not real fancy RAMs. It has some cool heat spreaders, but it's just one of those things that gets in there and it does what it needs to do. Now, this is going to be more geared towards a budget gaming build. I wouldn't recommend any of these single sticks for like a video editing rig or something that uses a lot of memory or is memory intensive, like CAD design. But as far as like a budget build, this Team T-Force, they've been impressing me a lot the last couple years with their quality and for a pretty good price. So we're getting to the 16 gigabytes. The first one I want to talk about is going to be the G.Skill Ripjaws V Series 16 gigabyte with a 3200 megahertz clock speed and a CL of 16. G.Skill is one of those companies that is a leader, a pioneer in the gaming and the PC building world. These are fantastic RAM. I mean, I've used them before in the past. Fantastic. I mean, they keep up. G.Skill always puts out fantastic products, and this is no exception. It's usually they usually have a 16 gigabyte kit under 100. So this is getting more towards a mid-range build. So if you have a little more money to spend, I would definitely upgrade to dual channel. Even if you're just gaming, what dual channel lets you do is in the future, if you want to do some editing or if you want to do some streaming, it helps that out tremendously. The next one is going to be another one from Team T-Force. It's going to be the Team T-Force Delta RGB 16 gigabyte 3200 megahertz CL16 in white. You can get it in black, but I've seen a lot of these really nice white builds. Zach's Tech Turf has a couple amazing all white builds on his channel. I'll put a link in the description of one of his videos. He's a pretty good guy. This is where we're going to introduce RGB, and RGB is very important to a lot of people. I mean, it really sets the mood on a lot of these builds. I've seen builds with little characters in them, like anime characters and things like that. These white builds are very nice and crisp and clean, and it's a welcome change to all the black. I like an all blackout build, but you know, I can see something where it's just like a clean white that look good. But as far as performance, I've seen a lot of metrics and a lot of tests on these Team T-Force RAM. They do a fantastic job. We're getting to the 32 gigabyte portion, and we got the Corsair Vengeance RGB Pro SL 32 gigabyte, 3600 megahertz with a clock speed of 18. A little higher clock speed, but a little higher megahertz speed, right? It's Corsair. If you're into PC, you know that Corsair has a lot of quality products. There's not much else you could say about as far as quality, but Corsair and the Vengeance line has been going strong for years, and I have a build that I built maybe before the whole rush happened on GPUs with a pair of Corsair Vengeance, not this particular model, but and it's still going strong. It's no performance issues at all, and it's still pumping. And the last one is going to be another titan of the PC part world, and it's going to be the Crucial Ballistic RGB 3200 32 gigabytes with a CL of 16. Crucial is what I have in my rig at work. I've been using Crucial for years when it comes to RAM. It's one of my favorite companies when it comes to RAM because the things just work. I've never had an issue. I've never had a problem. I've never had a performance problem out of a Crucial RAM at all. And it has RGB if that's important to you. But yeah, it's just something that works extremely well. I had no complaints of my Crucial Ballistics that I have on my rig at work. And yeah, that they've never let me down in the past. Now, I do want to say that the higher 5000 Ryzen series can use a 4000 megahertz RAM, but that's a lot more expensive, and you're not going to use it for very specific applications. I don't think you need to waste your money right now on 4000 RAM. Hey guys, thanks for joining me. If you like videos like this, I have more videos about PCs and parts lists and different Ryzen builds, also some Intel stuff. I'll link a playlist and a couple videos below, and you may see some cards pop up right here. If you like this type of video, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't like this type of video, give me a thumbs down. Tell me why you didn't like this type of video. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Have a good one.